Hi there, I'm Vince Molinaro, and welcome to this episode of the Lead the Future podcast. I'm so excited to introduce to you our guest for this episode. It is Tom Peters. As you know, he's the co-author of In Search of Excellence. It is a book that changed the way the world does business and is often tagged as the best business book that's ever been written. 19 books and 35 years later, Tom is still at the forefront of the management guru industry, one that he single-handedly invented. And certainly early in my career, he was an inspiration and why I even got into this work. His most recent effort, his new book, Excellence Now, Extreme Humanism, really continues Tom's tireless focus on putting people first and developing leaders who stay connected with those frontline employees who do the great work in our organizations. In November of 2017, Tom received the Thinker 50 Lifetime Achievement Award, a huge accomplishment for his career and great recognition for his amazing work. I hope you enjoy watching our conversation. I'm very excited, Tom. Your work has been very influential. I'm sure you get that a lot. And I've done what I've done because in my undergrad, I started following your work, and you just inspired me to do what I've been doing in the leadership space. So thank you for that. We'll start off there.
Those are very kind words. And even though I've been doing this for quite a long time, I never get tired of hearing. This was on January the 2nd of this year.
Yeah.
Alas, my co-author of the first book, Bob Waterman, passed away.
Yeah.
Just a couple of weeks ago, I was at his memorial service, and we were talking about some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And and we were incredibly lucky with our timing.
Yeah.
And as you know, at least as well as I, it was the right message forever.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I found fascinating, in your recent book. Here it is, Excellence Now, where you speak about, your 43-year journey of hope that started back in 1977. So when I saw that, in light of everything that's been happening in this world in the last couple of years and continues to happen, are you hopeful as you look at the current state of things in leadership and business?
That's a pretty rotten question to start with.
I know. I decided to go right for it.
I don't, I trust your audience. I don't want to play games. I have very, very deep concerns.
Yeah.
The Americans were arrogant enough to think that our democracy could withstand everything. It's not clear that it withstood January the 6th. And the new tools brought to us by Facebook and others, and Zuckerberg even admits it, you get more clicks if you can generate hate. How the hell could you live with yourself? I mean, that's another story. So I'm not hopeful. I think that within our sphere, we can do something. And I don't think everybody needs to go out and spend 20 hours a week volunteering for community stuff, but I think we have to be the same way that, in my opinion, and my wife's opinion even more, you and I can't fix climate change, but we sure as hell can not take all 3 family cars to the football game.
Right. Yeah. So let me come at this on the flip side then. So, after the time you've spent doing the great work you've done, where does Tom Peters get his inspiration? What inspires you today? It's the teeny stuff. I lived in Silicon Valley for 30 years when everything was being invented. Not that it isn't still, but it's when you're in the middle of your Silicon Valley thing and all your Stanford graduates with IQs that are higher than God, and you go to a little restaurant with 7 tables and the waitresses and the bus boys act as if it's really terrific that you came in. And, that to me is the essence of it. And
I mean, my biggest frustration, which was not exactly the question you asked, is if you really treat people decently, respectfully, and if you really devote yourself to helping them grow. You know, there was a something I got from a friend, and there was a very junior U.S. Navy officer who went on a supply ship, and he sat down with the captain, and the captain said, "I'm not going to judge you on your job. You're competent, you're well trained, you can do your damn job. What I'm going to judge you on is the sailors who work for you. How many of them took continuing education? How many of them got promoted from this level, using American Navy terms, E7 to E4 to E5?" And he said, "That's my judgment." And then I had the same thing. Oh my God, exactly the same thing. I was in Mumbai, and I was in the Navy for 4 years. And so I'm terrified of generals and admirals until my dying breath. And sitting in front of me was the 4-star general who ran the Indian Army, which is the largest army in the world, incidentally, with 1.2 million soldiers. And I don't know how the discussion happened. He was in the front row, and he said, when, I'm trying to make a decision on, promoting Joe or Jane into the general slot, there's only one thing I really do. I go back and investigate the people who worked for them over the last 20 years and see if their growth was significantly stimulated because they were around Joe Jones or Jane Jones.
Yeah.
I just love it. When a guy's running a 1.2 million person army, and he said, I'm not going to worry about whether you can, put together good battle plans.
Yeah.
I'm going to worry about the quality of the soldiers and sailors that you've helped grow.
And my sense is that I think, as I follow your work, and even in Excellence Now, I think that's one of the things that, your message is so continues to be so strongly rooted in people first, right? And that idea. And I think that's also a source of frustration. And, I encounter it as well around why is that still so hard for many people in leadership roles to get? What's your sense of that?
Well, I was actually just reading some stuff about that confirmed my views. In the hallway at the workplace, you keep hearing, "We got to get the place organized. We don't screwing around. Let's get to it. If you got to be tough, then you got to be tough. Tell people where they stand." And then, God help you, if you graduated from a business school, you took 7 finance courses, 4 marketing courses, and a course that you felt was a waste of time called People and Organizational Behavior. So we got a lot going against us in that regard. And incidentally, one small part of it that I feel really strongly about, and I feel among the guilty in earlier years, thinking in US terms, I don't really give a damn about the Fortune 500. The Fortune 500 employ 7% of us, which means they don't employ 93% of us. And my great love in life for the SMEs, the small and the medium-sized businesses, two people or 200 people. That to me is the great hope, frankly. And the statistics are very clear. Giant businesses just simply get worse over time, and the only question is how fast. And
it's funny you raise that, because in our own experience, with my team and I, that's what we find. And when we're working at that small to medium size enterprise, you can really have huge impact, and you can move much more quickly to implement some of these changes.
I will say, you or I is working in that giant enterprise, and we got a factory or whatever it was. We can make miracles happen within our real estate, which doesn't mean we end up changing the world, but there's no excuse for anything less than extraordinary. I hate words like transform, but the right attitude. And you watch it occasionally in sports where some team is struggling and they get a new coach, and the new coach has a different view of the world. There's a famous coach who, I don't remember all the details, but after a good team going sour, he changed his recruiting processes. Instead of trying to figure out who could throw the football the fastest, what he wanted to find out is what kind of a teammate had you been in high school at age 17? And he would literally, go around and find somebody in the corner store where you had grown up and say, what was it like to deal with him?
Yeah.
And it made an enormous difference.
Yeah. It's more about the person and how that person, relates to other people and the kind of impact they have on those. That seems to be the key there.
Yeah, and the thing the way I said it in the last book, and maybe even earlier than that, is excellence is not a hill to climb. Excellence is not an aspiration. Excellence is the next 5 minutes. I mean, I've been doing whatever the hell it is I'm doing for 40 odd years. And this, I don't think you'll think it's silly at all. The only thing, other than my kids and grandkids, the only thing I care about is the quality of our conversation. That's my whole life. I've been waiting for this moment. And I really feel that that's true. This is the magic moment. And, if we really connect well, and if we were in an accountancy or a restaurant or wherever it was, it'd make an enormous difference.
Yeah. Now your book is like just chock full of really insightful and practical ideas. We probably need 20 or 25 podcasts to just scratch the surface. But where I really want to dive in to get your perspectives, because certainly those who watch or listen to this podcast are, and it's a function of our works around culture. And you talk about leaders needing to be chief culture officers. So kind of describe that, because I agree with the idea, but I want to hear how you kind of envision it.
Well, there's a quote that I can't grab out of thin air in the book. And, I particularly love it. When I was doing my work at McKinsey, there was a real son of a bitch who really thought the culture stuff was bullshit. And his name was Lou Gerstner.
Right.
And Lou left McKinsey and went on to work with American Express and ended up being at IBM and doing a turnaround over a 10-year period. And the quote, I remember I got ill laughing when I read it. He said, when I got here, all I thought about was strategy and tactics. And then I discovered that if I wanted to make a change, it had to be all about culture. Culture is not important. Culture is not part of the game. Culture is the game.
Yeah, is the
if
game.
We could have some video now of Lou Gerstner in his big jerk mode, you'd realize the difference. So, but and again, it's excellence is the next slide. Culture is reinforced. We're now Zooming. In ye oldie days, it's reinforced in when you come, excuse my crudeness, when you come out of the ladies' room or the men's room, you just take an extra 30 seconds and stop by somebody's desk. And we don't have time, God knows, for everything. I think you can inject that into Zoom world.
I agree.
I was terrified when this started. I thought, oh my God, my whole thing is about emotion. Now I'm going to be looking at a bloody TV camera for the rest of my life, in effect. And it's not true. I think, God bless you. I'd love to see you, but I think we're having as good a conversation as we would if we had. I mean, there are things that are different.
Yeah, for sure.
Somebody once said, without research, that, and this was when booze was a little more normal or whatever, said 80% of innovative ideas come from the second martini. And it's not a trivial statement, actually. It is that completely when you're a little bit loose, and not suggesting booze is the requirement, but that stuff, I don't know how I'd try to replicate, which isn't the exact right word, that if I was running a 30-person purchasing department right now. But I sure as hell would. I gave somebody an example, and we have some sense of control over the pandemic, but I said, you're running a 15-person office during the pandemic, and for reasons that aren't silly, you end up having 4 or 5 meetings a week. And Mary, who's a terrific employee, has not missed a meeting in 2 months. She's on time, she's prepared, and now it's time for the quarterly evaluation. And I say, listen, Mary, you are a gift from the gods, but I happen to know that you've got parents who are in assisted living home and you've got 2 kids at home. And I said, do me a favor, be late every now and then. You know, I really want you to take care of, and I used a Mary, and that's probably a bad example. We'll call it Dick instead of Mary, because I'm not suggesting it's a feminine trait. It's Dick. You know, come on, Dick, be late. Come on, Dick, be tuned. You're free to be late, and it ain't all about productivity, brother.
Right. And that if you believe in your people, trust that they're, going to be adults and manage things, then I think they need to be encouraged to manage things at the home front as well. And I think a benefit of all of this is I think it's forced some managers and leaders you got to accept the fact people have lives beyond their work. And, like you, I've been on calls where toddlers are there and cats are there and people get nervous about it. It's like, hey, this is life. Let's figure it out. We'll get it done, right? So I think there are benefits.
I like to say to people, which is related at least dimly with what you're saying, is unless you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, you are going to spend most of your conscious adult life with your work group. And you adore your family, but statistically speaking, over a 2-year or 5-year period, I'm going to have spent more time with you than my kids. And my crude way of saying it, if I piss that time away, I've pissed my life away.
Yeah.
And so, some people say, well, the workforce isn't family. And of course it isn't family on many, many dimensions, but it is on many dimensions.
Yeah.
It's who I hang out with.
Yeah.
And that's just about as true in Zoom world as it was in ye olde days.
Yeah. Well, and you use the term early on, and you speak about it in the book. You sort of connect this idea of culture, and certainly the theme of community mindedness comes up a lot, right? And I think ultimately that's what we're talking about, and certainly what I talk about is how do we create a sense of community? And my sense is the biggest place where that needs to happen is among the leaders, because if they can do it, then they just set a tone for everyone else that could be quite compelling. What's kind of your thinking around community mindedness and its connection to excellence, performance, and culture?
Well, one piece, and I don't want to get hung up on it.
Yeah.
Is the late Anita Roddick, who was the founder of the Body Shop, Dame became a good friend. Every single person who worked in her shops were required to do something like one form or another of true community service.
Right.
And I think it was 3 hours a week or something like that. But she was very explicit about that. I think there are 100 versions of the first way we do community engagement is to have a workplace from which people come home happy instead of grouchy. That's community service, if a lot of us do that. But I'm in favor of the hard-nosed. I'm in favor of some form of the Roddick deal. I really expect part of your portfolio of accomplishments. I'm not going to shove it down your throat. I'm not going to say you got to get onto a community in your neighborhood, but we're going to just talk about it. And you're not all that keen on the idea, but 4 other people in our group are. And during the meetings and stuff, we're going to talk about it and hopefully infect you as well and make you feel in the best sense a teeny bit of an outcast. But and I think it ought to be. I mean, if we had 10 hours, we wouldn't be able to get through all the important stuff about evaluation, which is usually done so poorly. But in some form or other, it's part of the evaluation process. And also, that community also means, for example, with the emotional suggestions associated there with every vendor.
Yeah.
That's their family, family too. And it's Well, I don't know. I think it was my mother probably, but it's just so easy to have a little casual conversation with somebody. I was in the grocery store the other day, and I'm an older man, but there was an older woman who was just struggling with her, motorized vehicle going up and down the aisles. And I walked past her and I said, I've seen your picture before. She said, what? I said, I was just in the post office and your picture was on the 10 most wanted FBI list for all of the speeding tickets you have in that damn chair. And it was we had a ball, and somebody else who was nearby joined in, but that sort of thing really that's
and that's such a core idea. I mean, one of the core values of our company is we got to practice what we preach. And what I love about that story is you clearly do that. And I think that my sense is that's why you've been so successful over 43 years, because you don't speak about this, you live it. And that theme of helping leaders and managers understand the power of these small moments that sometimes they don't think are important, but when you weave each of these small moments together over the long term, it really does shape the kind of impact that you're going to have, as a leader.
I want to take one additional or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's in the book title. I don't remember the name. It's in my current book, but X, whoever it was who knows what they're talking about, said, hiring is the most important activity and virtually no bosses treat it that way.
Yeah.
And then also per what you were saying that I loved, I can't remember the guy's name, Optinos was the name of his firm. It's a biotech firm, meaning it's so damn technical that you and I we don't know what the words mean.
Yeah.
And the guy in charge said, we only hire nice people.
Yeah.
And he said, now the assumption is, if you have some crazy biotech degree and you have a 4.0 grade point average, I got to hire you. He said, I found something out. Even in that obscure degree, there are a lot of people around who have it. Don't hire the jerks.
Right.
And it's literally and in his case, and I've heard this before, in his case, you're the guy with a PhD in undefinable or pronounceable. And I fall in love with you during the interview. You are so damn smart. You have got stuff done. It's like, oh my God, I can't wait until he's in our R&D department. Well, when I'm finished with you, I'm the boss. I'm the CEO. I own half the damn company. I'm not allowed to hire you.
Right.
You've got to run the gauntlet.
Right.
And running the gauntlet is a half dozen little 10-minute interviews with somebody in the purchasing department, with the receptionist, with one of those R&D and every single one of those people has veto rights. Cool. They can say, yeah, he's the smartest human being I've ever met. I don't want to be within 20 yards of that SOP.
So two more quick questions I'd love your perspective on. So we've talked about kind of what leaders have gone through, what companies have gone through, what employees have gone through the last little bit. And what do you think over the next 2 to 3 years, what do organizations really need from their leaders and managers to focus on? If you can get that down, what's one critical thing?
Well, we all know the speed of artificial intelligence. We don't know where it's going. Nobody does. Ironclad requirement that people grow.
Yeah.
And I don't mean grow but they're broadly interested in what's going on around them. And obviously there are a million things that we didn't talk about in our short discussion, but one huge part of that is I'm writing a new book, and my co-author is a woman by the name of Nancy Green, who's one of the best designers in the world. It's exciting to be working with her, but products that really make you proud, right, and services that really make you proud. And the wonderful thing is that doesn't mean you're trying to make a Cadillac. It doesn't have to be an expensive service, but as somebody said, I don't think it was her, I read it somewhere else, is you want to be able to brag about the products you're making with your grandmother and with your 17-year-old daughter or what have you.
Right.
And there was this ancient age like mine, memory used to be great. now gone, a book called The Three Rules.
Right.
And, Deloitte and Touche people did it. It's researched up the kazoo, and they found 27 companies who were better than everybody else. And there were 3 rules. And one of them that I do remember was better before cheaper.
Right.
And, they had that, and they had another one, and then rule 3, and they only had 3 rules. Rule 3 was see rule 1 and see 2.
That's funny.
And rule 2,
I remember that.
Stuff that's terrific. And, and there's no, and again, that doesn't matter whether it's AI or a restaurant.
Right. It doesn't matter.
It just absolutely positively does not matter at all.
I appreciate the conversation. There's one last question that we ask every podcast guest, and it's really about young leaders, young people just joining the workforce now, or maybe in the workforce for a couple of years. What words of wisdom and advice would you give to them, Tom?
Really, and some people are outgoing and some people aren't. So you've got to be really careful when you say things like that, or focus on this. The advice, in a way, and this sounds really silly, is have a good time, engage. The project I did that led to the first book, all the senior people at McKinsey thought it was awful. Most of them thought it was awful. And I didn't fight them. I just went out and found another group of people.
Right.
And so, it's build your own community within the workforce, and it's all about community. That's my, okay, listen, this
awesome.
is a fabulous conversation.
Thank you so much, Tom. Really appreciate it.